Well, welcome to the first video in this series of 5. Today we're going to be reviewing the first of 5 chosen lessons from A Course in Miracles, which is a mind training course designed to help bring the mind to a state of perfect inner peace through an application of spiritual principles such as forgiveness and tolerance and patience and all of these sorts of things, and prayer and meditation. It's a non-religious participation, and we've selected these 5 videos today because of their value, their impact value in dislodging the mind from its fixed beliefs about time and space, and dislodging you from the belief that you have to participate in the world in the way in which you've been taught, which doesn't bring you any joy or any peace or any happiness. If you're like I once was, you probably believed that your lot in life was to work hard, pay taxes until the day you died, and your children the same, and their children, and so forth and so forth. But as I have come to learn, and as you will come to learn if you're dedicated enough in this endeavor, is that there is more to the idea of life than meets the eye, and definitely much more to the idea of life, the universe and everything than you will find at a cursory glance out there in the world. So the idea that we're presenting, as I stated in the introductory video to these 5 lessons, is that the world is an illusion, a dream, which is something that is adhered to by Sufis, by Hindus, by practitioners of Zen Buddhism, and in general Buddhism across the board, Australian Aboriginals, and sadly something that in the West we don't really have a comprehension of. We tend to think that everything is solid, and because we can sense it with our 5 senses, that must mean it's what reality is. But as I have learned, and as you will learn perhaps through even doing these 5 lessons with us, is that reality has a whole different set of parameters for what it is, apart from this in its entirety, apart from the physical nature of life in its entirety. And to say that the universe is a really big place is an understatement, and to try and examine it without an experience of it, which is what we're dedicating these lessons towards, having an experience of the entirety of the universe or the oneness of life. Without that experience, it's almost impossible to comprehend, and I don't really recommend trying it. But go for it if you want to. So lesson 1 that we're going to be presenting today is nothing I see means anything. And the reason for that is because if the world, and I'm saying if, under the premise that perhaps you're not agreeing with me, if the world is indeed an illusion, if the world is indeed a fabrication, a projection of the mind, then it's only my own mind that tells me what it is that I think I'm seeing and gives it the meaning that it has. So lesson number 1, nothing I see means anything, then, is an integral lesson in the beginning of the process of dislodging myself from the, what would you call it, from the subconscious acceptance of the meaning that I think I've given everything as it is. Right? I don't question my reality. I don't question my world about what things mean and what they are. When I'm a child, perhaps we might say, well, why is life like this? Why is life like that? But as we grow up to maturity, we tend to push those sorts of things aside and just get on with it. And sadly, that innocence of questioning gets swallowed up in the busyness of making a family and producing a successful life or an interesting life and that sort of thing. So then, in undoing our thought system that has brought us to this hellish perception of the world as being a place that perhaps is very unfair and demanding and fast-paced and chaotic and all of these things, wherein my peace of mind seems to be constantly jostled by what I see on the news and my thoughts about the world and everything else. In the undoing of the thought system I've used to convince myself that fear is a valuable perception, it's necessary that we begin with a few groundbreaking truths. And these are things that you will already perhaps be aware of and will already be nodding your head going, well, everything only does have the meaning that I give it. That's obviously makes sense. But to actually say those words and to hear those words is a different thing entirely. And it's the hearing of the words that the practice of the lesson is designed to bring about, to put a chink in the armor of that egoic thought system that perpetuates the fearful foundation for life that everything here is doomed to die, therefore there's no point to life and you may as well commit suicide, which unfortunately is on the rise, as everybody knows. I don't have to tell you that. And along with that, the 1 in 5 mental health issue that seems to be prevalent and widely advertised these days as the state of the nation. And in our country, Australia, we had for a country of 25 million people, we had a $220 billion mental health debt last year, which is 1/10 of our national GDP. So the necessity for an alternative way to view one's place in the world and oneself within it can't be any more apt than now, can't be any more current than, it's got to happen. So this is it. This is our attempt, and we hope you embrace it, enjoy it, share it, and at least remain open-minded to what's presented here as something that we ourselves, the three of us presenting this, have put into practice in our lives and have seen dramatic and radical changes in our relationships and in our own sense of self and own sense of inner peace within even the short space of as little as a year. Okay, so I'm going to hand you over now to Dean and Michelle, who are new students of A Course in Miracles, who are almost a year in with their workbook practices and have had quite a few revelatory and spontaneously miraculous, I don't even know how else I would term it, experiences and shifts in consciousness that is showing them in their own capacity that indeed the world is an illusion, that indeed things here aren't the way they seem to be, and that they don't have to believe in things as originally presented to them as being solid and the status quo of things. So over to you guys, I think. I don't think I have anything else to say. I hope that serves as a little introduction, and before we go, I'll be doing our second lesson tomorrow, and we'll have a similar little introduction as well, and for the other 4 lessons after today's, and I hope they're helpful.
Hi, I'm Dean, and I'm going to introduce you to lesson 1 of the Course in Miracles. Nothing I see means anything.
And I'm Michelle, and I'll make application of that lesson.
So lesson 1 is, nothing I see means anything. On this street, from this window, in this place. Now look slowly around you and practice applying this idea very specifically to whatever you see. This table does not mean anything. This chair does not mean anything. This hand does not mean anything. This foot does not mean anything. This pen does not mean anything. Then look further away from your immediate area and apply the idea to a wider range. That door does not mean anything. That body does not mean anything. That lamp does not mean anything. That sign does not mean anything. That shadow does not mean anything. Notice that these statements are not arranged in any order, and make no allowances for the differences in any kinds of the things to which they are applied. The purpose, that is the purpose of the exercise. The statement should be merely applied to anything you see. As you practice the idea for the day, use it totally indiscriminately. Do not attempt to apply it to everything you see, for these exercises should not become ritualistic. Only be sure that nothing you see is specifically excluded. One thing is like another as far as the application of the idea is concerned. Each of these first 3 lessons should not be done more than twice a day each, preferably morning and evening, nor should they be attempted for more than a minute or so, unless that entails a sense of hurry. Comfortable sense of leisure is essential.
Thanks, Dean. Now I'll apply the lesson. Nothing I see means anything. This body does not mean anything. This rug does not mean anything. This mirror does not mean anything. This pen does not mean anything. This table does not mean anything. This foot does not mean anything. That fence does not mean anything. That ceiling does not mean anything. That tree does not mean anything. That body does not mean anything. That air conditioner does not mean anything. That rug does not mean anything. Nothing I see in this room, on this street, from this window, in this place.
Well, welcome to our 3rd video in this 5 video series, and we're not particularly going in order since we're only doing 5 of 365 lessons. We're going to do lesson 8, which is my mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. And again, we're not really telling you anything you don't already know, which is kind of funny. But mental health and bringing about a sense of inner peace is recognizing the truth of the situation you find yourself in and accepting it as it is without trying to adjust to it. Right, so now I'm going to tell you that your mind is preoccupied with past thoughts, and you're going to look into your mind to see what kind of past thoughts it's preoccupied with. Right, because the mind loves to just 2-step around and think about the future or the past or whatever. But reality is in the here and the now. Reality is where we are all one, where I can be alive, where I am living, where I can appreciate, where I can give and receive in the now, in this moment. So having a mind that's preoccupied constantly with the past, you're missing what's happening now. You're missing the miraculous nature of life, the universe, and everything, even within the framework of the human experience. And I call it the human experience because it is an experience. It's something that we are all experiencing, or that, if I keep it singular, I am experiencing and seeing the results of my thinking out there projected onto a blank landscape that I've given meaning to, unbeknownst to me, without knowing what the meaning of it is, which is kind of funny. And if you look at it, the big sense, it's not really that there are 7 billion of us running around all doing the same thing. It's like I'm seeing the results of my own thinking out there on the landscape of the world. But it seems as if, in the illusion or in the dream of the human experience, that we're all giving meaning to all sorts of things, and we have this kind of an autonomy. But in the pursuit of enlightenment, we learn that, or I learn, and this is very hard to keep it singular when I'm talking to myself on the video here, I'm learning that my world is a result of my thinking. And so what I see reflects my thoughts about it, because it's only my own thinking that tells me what I think I'm seeing. And if my thoughts are constantly preoccupied with the past, not only am I not seeing and experiencing what's happening fully presently, here and now, as a focused and conscious action of living, but I'm also reinforcing my own egoic kind of perception of myself as being something that was once young, is getting older, is going to die, whatever, validating my body and negating the truth of me as spirit to present the light and love of what I am with you as the one and whole thing here and now. And I don't know if that makes sense particularly, but as you undergo this transformation of mind through the use of these lessons, and if you do buy the big book and do all the lessons, you absolutely will undergo that whole transformation. You'll come to an appreciation and an acceptance of the fact that all is one, that there is a single love that we share. And so Dean and Michelle are going to be reading lesson 8. My mind is preoccupied with past thoughts, and you might have a sudden realization of, holy cow, my mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. And there's nothing wrong with realizing that. In fact, it's kind of an essential realization to have, so that you can begin to change the habits and the perpetual nature of that way of thinking in you, so you can become more fully conscious and present of this moment here and now, and join in with us with what is actually going on and where you really are at and what's happening, which is the awakening from a dream. Okay.
Hi, Michelle here again, and I'll be reading lesson 8.
I'm Dean.
My mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. This idea is, of course, the reason why you see only the past. No one really sees anything. He sees only his thoughts projected outwards. The mind's preoccupation with the past is the cause of the misconception about time from which your seeing suffers. Your mind cannot grasp the present, which is the only time there is. It therefore cannot understand time, and cannot in fact understand anything. The one wholly true thought one can hold about the past is that it is not here. To think about it at all is therefore to think about illusions. Very few have realized what is actually entailed in picturing the past or in anticipating the future. The mind is actually blank when it does this, because it is not really thinking about anything. The purpose of the exercises for today is to begin to train your mind to recognize when it is not really thinking at all. While thoughtless ideas preoccupy your mind, the truth is blocked. Recognizing that your mind has been merely blank, rather than believing that it is filled with real ideas, is the first step to opening the way to vision. The exercises for today should be done with eyes closed. This is because you actually cannot see anything, and it is easier to recognize that no matter how vividly you may picture a thought, you are not seeing anything. With as little investment as possible, search your mind for the usual minute or so, merely noting the thoughts you find there. Name each one by the central figure or theme it contains, and pass on to the next. Introduce the practice by saying, I seem to be thinking about blank. Then name each of your thoughts specifically. For example, I seem to be thinking about name of a person, about name of an object, about name of an emotion, and so on, concluding at the end of the mind-searching period with, but my mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. This can be done 4 or 5 times during the day, unless you find it irritates you. If you find it trying, 3 or 4 times is sufficient. You might find it helpful, however, to include your irritation, or any emotion that the idea for today may induce, in the mind searching itself. Now I'll hand over to Dean to make application.
Thank you, Michelle. I seem to be thinking about.
Well, welcome to our second video in this 5-video series. This video is going to be My Thoughts Do Not Mean Anything, which is lesson 10 from A Course in Miracles, which, if I didn't mention it before, is a spiritual... Do we have a copy of the book there that I can hold up? There we go. That's the book. One of the versions of the book. There's a white edition and there's also a sparkly edition, and I believe there's a black edition. A book which has been brought forth for the Western mind predominantly to help bring a realignment or an understanding of the nature of man's experience of time and space, so that you can learn to make a better choice or better choices. The necessity for making the choice is unavoidable. It must be made. I have to make a choice for God, for the whole, for a better way, if you want. And that has to be because my way is shit. My way leads to nothing, just round and round in circles, and makes no sense and just brings chaos. And a chaotic mind spirals down into depression and contemplates suicide and all of that. So anyone who's dallied with such thinking, dark thoughts, will know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, this video is probably not really for you just yet, but feel free to watch on and you might learn something. But we're not really telling you anything you don't know. Like today's lesson, My Thoughts Do Not Mean Anything. We already know full well our thoughts don't mean anything other than the meaning that we've given them, and we cling to that meaning because we don't know what the meaning of life is fundamentally, and we've forgotten that. And the purpose of spiritual pursuit, whether you're a Buddhist or a Christian or a Hindu or a Jain or a Zoroastrian or a Sufi, is to reawaken the memory of what you are and where you are forever within your own mind, which is in there, I promise you. And that's what enlightenment or salvation or awakening is about. In the West, it's not a commonly understood theme, and is part of the reason why we're introducing these shattering lessons, mind-shattering lessons to you, so that you can begin to remind yourself of what it is you already know. So lesson 10, My Thoughts Do Not Mean Anything. And the lesson makes a distinction between what are your real thoughts and what thoughts are unreal. And if you're living from a fearful premise, I can simply offer it to you this way, in that God, which is love, is everything, therefore can have no opposite. Now, in our experience of ourselves as human beings, we find ourselves in a situation where the opposite to love seems to be fear. But if God is everything and God is what reality is, then fear can't possibly exist. And so the idea that we have fearful thoughts or thoughts about ourselves which have foundations in fear, which is what the physical nature of life is, good and bad, those thoughts can't possibly have any reality to us. And in fact, we are honest, we don't need to listen to our thinking at all in order to get through our day. You might put on a shirt and say, well, my thoughts told me what colour shirt to put on, but you're always going to put on that shirt anyway. I don't know if you can hear that from me, because we're conditioned to thinking that our thoughts actually mean something. So here's Dean and Michelle again with lesson 10, and remember that these lessons are designed to help bring about a sense of inner peace and a way in which you can master your control or your acceptance of that sense of inner peace for yourself, to carry with you out in the world, in your relationships, in your job and everything else, as a true purpose for your human experience, in your own endeavour to participate in the resurrection of man unto God, for salvation or your own enlightenment process, however you want to term that as, or maybe you don't want to call it anything, that's fine too. but it's a mind training procedure that takes some amount of study and application before you begin to see the results of it pay off in your life. And I guarantee you that if you do the lessons exactly as they tell you to apply them, you will begin to see the results of it. And that may be shocking at first, it may be startling, it might be slightly concerning to you to hear that your thoughts don't mean anything, but as I said before, we're not telling you anything that you really don't know already. All right, take it away, Dean and Michelle.
Hi, I'm Dean, and we're back for lesson number 10, and it is my thoughts do not mean anything. I found this as a pivotal lesson, a really good release, really good tool to release your fears. So yeah, it's an awesome lesson. So it's called My Thoughts Do Not Mean Anything, and this idea applies to all the thoughts of which you are aware or become aware in the practice periods. The reason the idea is applicable to all of them is they are not your real thoughts. We have made this distinction before and will do so again. You have no basis for comparison as yet. When you do, you will have no doubt that what you once believed were your thoughts did not mean anything. This is the second time we have used this kind of idea. The form is only slightly different. This time the idea is introduced with my thoughts instead of these thoughts, and no link is made overtly with the things around you. The emphasis is now on the lack of reality of what you think you think. This aspect of the correction process began with the idea that the thoughts of which you are aware are meaningless outside rather than within, and then stressed their past rather than their present status. Now we are emphasizing that the presence of these thoughts means that you are not thinking. This is merely another way of repeating our earlier statement that your mind is really a blank. To recognize this is to recognize nothingness when you think you see it. As such, it is the prerequisite for vision. Close your eyes for these exercises and introduce them by repeating the idea for today quite slowly to yourself, and then add, this idea will help to release me from all that I now believe. The exercises consist, as before, in searching your mind for all the thoughts that are available to you without selection or judgment. Try to avoid classification of any kind. In fact, if you find it helpful to do so, you might imagine that you are watching an oddly assorted procession going by, which has little, if any, personal meaning to you. As each one crosses your mind, say, my thought about this does not mean anything. Today's thought can obviously serve for any thought that distresses you at any time. In addition, 5 practice periods are recommended, each involving no more than a minute or so of mind searching. It is not recommended that this time period be extended, and it should be reduced to half a minute or less if you experience discomfort. Remember, however, to repeat the idea slowly before applying it specifically, and also to add, this idea will help to release me from all that I now believe. Over to you, Michele.
Thanks, Dean. I'll now apply the lesson. My thoughts do not mean this idea of thoughts. My thoughts about being on video do not mean anything. My thoughts about being in this room do not mean anything. This idea will help release me from what I believe. My thoughts about being fearful do not mean anything. This idea will help release me from what I believe. My thoughts
Thank you, Michelle.
Well, hello and welcome to take 2 of lesson 77. I'm entitled to miracles, and we're just having a bit of a laugh because Dean, not Wayne, and I and Michelle just had a healing session, and we're feeling a little bit like we've been run over by a steamroller. And so we're just going to put this out there and introduce lesson 77. I'm entitled to miracles, and Dean will give you the reading of it. Michelle will do lesson 200, which is above all else, I want the peace of God. Did I get that right? It was a big light session, so we'll probably pick up on. I don't think I'm quite back in my body yet. Anyway, whatever it is.
There is no peace except the peace of God.
Oh, there is no peace except the peace of God. That'll do. Yeah, and above all else, I want the peace of God. Same thing. You're asking for what you've already got, so to be revealed. So lesson 77, I'm entitled to miracles, is making a claim on, I wouldn't say it's your inheritance, but making a claim on your own inner recognition of your true state. And you're entitled to miracles because of what you are, being the Christ with me and with everything else, all living things. So the idea of a miracle then might be something that consciously you have some kind of problem wrapping your head around, but that's only because you're trying to work out what a miracle is. And precisely, it's a miracle because you can't work it out. And that's why we say, oh, that was a miracle. You know, it must have happened by the grace of God, or something there happened. And you can be sure that if you could work out what the miracle was, you would get in the way. You'd put your own 2 cents worth and your pointy little judgmental brain into the equation and fuck it up. And that happens a lot. You know, the human consciousness likes to be in control and to know what's going on. And so when the idea of, oh, I need a miracle dawns upon the threshold of the mind as the only way out of a particular situation, perhaps, it can be quite confronting, because there's a moment there that where there is a recognition of the necessity for faith. And that's something that in a world where we take what we see and what we touch and feel and think for granted, faith tends to be something that we don't need. We tend to prefer logic and things that make immediate sense to us and that we can put into our little pigeonholes of conceptual association about the world and ourselves in our mind, so that we don't feel too out of sorts with the place, you know, with being here or having this experience. So the idea then of embracing a miracle, or praying the prayer of the heart for the healing of the mind, I need a miracle, Lord, help, that kind of thing. Because you don't know what the miracle's going to look like, you have to leave it open-ended. You know, so if you're asking for a miracle to fix that person or to sort out that situation or whatever, then forget it. You're never going to be able to put your finger on the result or anything like that. It's just like, it just has to be a miracle. I just need a miracle. I don't care what the result is. I just need something to change in this equation and in my own mind about this equation, to allow me to not only see it differently, but allow my then interactions with it to similarly change in such a way wherein the push and pull effect, or the cause and effect relationship that I have with the situation, can follow on likewise and change within itself as well. How long that takes and when that happens in time isn't my concern, but what is my concern is my healing of it in my mind, and it has to be a miracle. So we're going to hand over to Dean, and he'll do the reading of the lesson. And take a few deep breaths before you listen to him. Try to get grounded and focus on his presentation, and you'll hear what's being said in the words, not hear what your interpretation of the words is. And that brings me to just quickly to a little point about listening. Listening without judgment, listening as if this is the first time I've heard something, and it's important to me, is incredibly important. Learning to focus, to be devoted in your meditations, everything. So listening is a skill also that you'll develop as you go along through letting go of judgment about what you think you're hearing because you think you've heard something similar before. And most spiritual stuff is similar. Be here now, let go of the past and all that sort of thing. And but if you're using your past references, oh, Maharishi said this, or somebody else said that, you're not really listening. You're not really hearing for the first time in the newness and vibrancy of this moment what it is that's being expressed. You're sitting in some past associative idea to try and validate ideas that you think you already know, which is impossible because life is brand new in each and every moment, and you're hearing everything for the first time now. Time is not sequential, and there is nothing outside of my own mind. So welcome to me, and here's Dean with lesson 77 of A Course in Miracles. I am entitled to miracles.
Hello, I'm Dean, and this is A Course in Miracles. I'm going to read out lesson 77 today. I am entitled to miracles. You are entitled to miracles because of what you are. You will receive miracles because of what God is. And you will offer miracles because you are one with God. Again, how simple is salvation? It is merely a statement of your true identity. It is this that we will celebrate today. Your claim to miracles does not lie in illusions about yourself. It does not depend on any magical powers you have ascribed to yourself, nor on any of the rituals you have devised. It is inherent in the truth of what you are. It is implicit in what God your Father is. It was ensured in your creation and guaranteed by the laws of God. Today we will claim the miracles which are your right, since they belong to you. You have been promised full release from the world you made, and you have been assured the kingdom of God is within you and can never be lost. We ask no more than what belongs to us in truth. Today, however, we will also make sure that we will not content ourselves with less. Begin the longer practice periods by telling yourself quite confidently that you are entitled to miracles. Closing your eyes, remind yourself you are asking only what is rightfully yours. Remind yourself also that miracles are never taken from one and given to another, and that in asking for your rights, you are upholding the rights of everyone. Miracles do not obey the laws of this world, they merely follow from the laws of God. After this brief introductory phase, wait quietly for the assurance that your request is granted. You have asked for salvation of the world and for your own. You have requested that you be given the means by which this is accomplished. You cannot fail to be assured in this. You are but asking that the will of God be done. In doing this, you do not really ask for anything, a state of fact that cannot be denied. The Holy Spirit cannot but assure you that your request is granted. The fact that you accepted must be so. There is no room for doubt and uncertainty today. We are asking a real question at last. The answer is a simple statement or a simple fact. You will receive the assurance that you seek. Shorter practice periods will be frequent and will also be devoted to a reminder of a simple fact. Tell yourself often today, I am entitled to miracles. Ask for them whenever a situation arises in which they are called for. You will recognize these situations, and since you are not relying on yourself to find the miracle, you are fully entitled to receive it whenever you ask. Remember too, not to be satisfied with less than the perfect answer. Be quick to tell yourself should you be tempted. I will not trade grievances. I will not trade miracles for grievances. I want only what belongs to me. God has established miracles as my right.
Well, here we are at our last lesson in this series of 5. Hope you've enjoyed them so far. Michelle's going to be reading lesson 200. There is no peace except the peace of God. And just listen. Listen to the words. Understand your purpose. This is an incredible lesson. It has a really good outline of purpose and the nature of transition within this lesson. All of the lessons contain invaluable help if you're pursuing salvation and the purification of the mind. But this one particularly for me, we chose because of its depth really in looking at the idea of changing our mind about the purpose of the world, the purpose that we had given it, and embracing a new purpose for it, which is the teaching, learning, relationship purpose, and under the banner of healing. So take it away, Michele.
Welcome back. I'm Michele and I'll be reading lesson 200 from A Course in Miracles. There is no peace except the peace of God. Seek you no further. You will not find peace except the peace of God. Accept this fact and save yourself the agony of yet more bitter disappointments, bleak despair, and the sense of icy hopelessness and doubt. Seek you no further. There is nothing else for you to find except the peace of God, unless you seek for misery and pain. This is the final point to which each one must come at last, to lay aside all hope of finding happiness where there is none, of being saved by what can only hurt, of making peace of chaos, joy of pain, and heaven out of hell. Attempt no more to win through losing, nor to die to live. You cannot but be asking for defeat. Yet you can ask as easily for love, for happiness, and for eternal life in peace that has no ending. Ask for this and you can only win. To ask for what you have already must succeed. To ask that what is false be true can only fail. Forgive yourself for vain imaginings and seek no longer for what you cannot find. For what could be more foolish than to seek and seek and seek again for hell, when you have but to look with open eyes to find what heaven lies before you, through a door that opens easily to welcome you. Come home. You have not found your happiness in foreign places and in alien forms that have no meaning to you, though you sought to make them meaningful. This world is not where you belong. You are a stranger here, but it is given you to find the means whereby the world no longer seems to be a prison house or a jail for anyone. Freedom is given you where you beheld but chains and iron doors. But you must change your mind about the purpose of the world if you would find escape. You will be bound until all the world is seen by you as blessed, and everyone made free of your mistakes and honored as he is. You made him not, no more yourself. And as you free the one, the other is accepted as he is. What does forgiveness do? In truth, it has no function and does nothing, for it is unknown in heaven. It is only hell where it is needed, and where it must serve a mighty function. Is not the escape of God's beloved Son from evil dreams that he imagines, yet believes are true, a worthy purpose? Who could hope for more while there appears to be a choice to make between success and failure, love and fear? There is no peace except the peace of God, because he has one Son who cannot make a world in opposition to God's will and to his own, which is the same as his. What could he hope to find in such a world? It cannot have reality because it never was created. It is here that he would seek. Is it here that he would seek for peace? Or must he see that as he looks on it, the world can be but deceived? Yet can he learn to look on it another way and find the peace of God? Peace is the bridge that everyone will cross to leave this world behind. But peace begins within the world perceived as different and leading from this fresh perception to the gate of heaven and way beyond. Peace is the answer to conflicting goals, to senseless journeys, frantic, vain pursuits, and meaningless endeavors. Now the way is easy, sloping gently towards the bridge where freedom lies within the peace of God. Let us not lose our way again today. We go to heaven and the path is straight. Only if we attempt to wander can there be delay and needless wasted time on thorny byways. God alone is sure, and he will guide our footsteps. He will not desert his son in need, nor let him stray forever from his home. The Father calls, the Son will hear. And that is all there is to what appears to be a world apart from God, where bodies have reality. Now is there silence. Seek no further. You have come to where the road is carpeted with leaves of false desires, fallen from trees of hopelessness you sought before. Now are they underfoot, and you look up on towards heaven with the body's eyes, but serving for an instant longer now. Peace is already recognized at last, and you can feel its soft embrace surround your heart and mind with comfort and with love. Today we seek no idols. Peace cannot be found in them. The peace of God is ours, and only this we accept and want. Peace be us today, for we have found a simple, happy way to leave the world of ambiguity and to replace our shifting goals and solitary dreams with single purpose and companionship. For peace is union, if it be of God. We seek no further. We are close to home and draw still nearer every time we say, there is no peace except the peace of God, and I am glad and thankful it is so.